Okay, everybody, welcome back to Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman and myself, Fred Carroll. How are you today, Mr. Scott H. Silverman?
Well, I'm good, Fred. I had some food poisoning over the weekend, and at my age and being a wimp, and I'm even more embarrassed because I know what a tough guy Scott is. I felt I thought I was going to die. I mean, it was horrible, and I thought I was going to have to go to the ER. But I got through it, and my daughter was here last week, so that was fun. So it's been an interesting week, a lot of ups and downs. So I was really excited about coming here today and talking with you, Fred, of course, and meet Scott. I've done a little listening on him, so I'm doing okay. How about you, brother?
Oh, I got COVID.
Shut up.
COVID. Yeah, I've had it since Thursday. Took some days off from work, and now it's the tail end. I'm testing negative, so I'm good. I made it. I survived my third bout of COVID.
Where'd you get it?
I don't know. Do we ever know? Do we ever know where we get it?
I know. I got mine at Walmart one day. My buddy and I went. We both got it. Probably checking out. We think, but it was weird because neither one of us had ever had it all those years, and so that was just kind of weird. But it's.
Plus,
I thought maybe that's what I had, but I was so sick. It was worse than COVID, in my opinion. What I had.
I'm in customer service. I work in a lumber yard. Nobody is testing as they're coming in and out. You never know who you can get it from. Could have been from my daughter. You just don't know. But so You have a guest with us today. You want to
I'm just gonna read something. Then I'm gonna say something. Then we're gonna let him rock and roll. Today Scott Payne is with us, and he's this is the thumbnail, Scott, that you have out there. Scott spent more than 2 decades working with some of the most notorious bike gangs, illegal drug operations, and neo-Nazis, and it would be hard to even imagine some of the things he's seen and experienced in his decades of long career as an FBI special agent, as a guy in the treatment business who works with a lot of veterans who suffer from PTSD and untreated trauma. I feel right at home with you, Scott, and I don't know what your wellness picture is like, brother, but I've heard your talk, and the thing that struck me, and I actually found you on LinkedIn, is when you were sharing the human side, the heartfelt side of what you talked about and how important your role was, and not only protecting yourself and your family, but making sure that what you did was done in an integral way. I mean, I may have misread that, but that's the way I heard it when you talked about your story. And I was just so impressed. I've been working with criminal justice for years and law enforcement, as a civilian, but helping them with their issues around trauma and substance use disorders and things of that nature. And just listening to you share about how it sounded seamless. It almost sounded like, your whole life was carved out to do this, and probably wasn't initially, but it was impressive to hear the human side of what you do. And I know enough about your world, just enough to get in trouble, but I was just I was taken aback by it in a very positive way, and I was real impressed with how you came out of it, and more importantly, the work you're doing now to tell the story, which is real critical, because people hear from politicians, people hear from what they perceive as thought leaders, and we know a lot of it's just kind of pushed out there, but you seem like the real deal, and I'd like to hope that one day we'll get a chance to meet. But really welcome here to Your Crisis Coach. And Scott, the day is, we're going a little early because I know you're getting a visit from, I'm sure, some big VIP later today, or a nice happy hour, either way. But we started a little early, and I want to just give you the opportunity to, and we want to hear about your family, and we want to hear about you as a human being, and what, and I'd like to also hear what's all of this is kind of done with you and for you and happenstance. And I think you had 1 million+ views, and you've got a great bestseller and an international plane and domestically, and you sound like a humble guy that is trying to figure out how to not walk around in a tuxedo in a helicopter. So good for you. Anyway, so it's all yours, buddy. Tell us who you are and give us whatever you think we want to hear. And then if we don't think you're giving us enough, we'll ask you a couple questions. So again, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. So the I try to be very transparent and vulnerable. I never thought it was vulnerable, but that's where I get a lot of feedback. You're like, man, you're so vulnerable when you're telling the stories. Even when I go teach to a gang conference or a narcotics officers conference or something. But that's how I think you learn. Like you can watch 10 people get up there and tell wonderful success stories and nobody remembers that. But if you show the video of, and they get to hear me and how scared I sound and me explaining what's happening when I'm being stripped to the basement at gunpoint and I'm wired like a lot, that resonates and that's how you remember. And it was my mentors who reached out to me, like Joe Pistone, aka Donnie Brasco, and people like that when I crashed mentally and physically in somewhere around 2008 because I'd been doing too much. I found my threshold, doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. It just means that I found that day I hit it and I was done. But they reached out to me and my nickname was Big Country through the FBI pretty much the entire time from the moment I arrived at Quantico. That's what they nicknamed me. But I was they'd reach out to me and like Joe would say, "Hey, Country, how you doing?" And I'm like, I'm doing better. And he's like, "Well, take care of yourself, take care of your family, but as soon as you can, put pen to paper about what you've learned from this whole thing that happened, because that's how we pay it forward. That's how we teach people, and that's how we get good instruction." And they were spot on. And I was already an instructor anyway. I mean, I'm tactical, defensive tactics, firearms, all that stuff. But a speaker and a teacher kind of came in, and I've been doing that for, a long time.
So tell us a little bit more about 2008. Was that a crash and burn, or just hit the wall, or you were just exhausted, or you'd been in a role play for so long that you maybe lost touch in who you were?
It was exhaustion. I didn't realize at that point that I had PTS because even then, even with a minor in psychology, I was like, well, I've never been to war. Man, I don't have PTSD or something like that, But I had been going for about a 3-year period, and I did too much, and I stopped taking care of myself. It's not that, okay, I'm doing an undercover that was a 2-year undercover. I'm doing another undercover that was a 1.5-year undercover that overlaps. And those are collateral duties. When I come back to my division, I was the lead relief supervisor, which means you're the principal, which means if the boss takes a week off, you're the one running the squad. And that was in the border of Mexico. You got trainees under you. You're running all the firearms and stuff for the SWAT team. You're on the SWAT team. You're running all the tactical and firearms training for the office you're in. And I love doing all that. I volunteered for it. The only thing I was required to be was a case agent, but I'm a workaholic by nature and I love doing more than one thing. But I took the warrior mentality, which I think is imperative for that line of work and the things we do. But I applied that warrior mentality to every situation in my life and every aspect, and it ended up being detrimental. It ended up being a perfect storm. After about a 3-year period, the best way I can say it is I was burning the candle at both ends and I ran out of wax. I think personally, your threshold changes daily, just like my comfort zone. I say this all the time when I'm teaching. Sometimes you take off jogging and you're like, man, I feel good. This is going to be a good day. Sometimes I take off jogging and I'm like, how long have I been running? And you look down, it's like 1.5 minutes and you're like, it's going to be a long day, right? So what happened to me is I was doing so much, and my MO at work was to try to be above average. So if you're a senior investigator on the squad, if you looked at a 3-year period, the majority of the top 10 cases were mine for the squad. The majority of the top 10 sources producing stuff were mine. In my mind, that meant that if I'm that good, if I'm producing like that, and I'm a big hitter, that means that the supervision can't say, hey, you can't do this undercover. Hey, you can't go on this SWAT call out. You can't put on this SWAT school. And that was my MO. But it ended up getting me because it got to a point to where I was really, I go into great depth in the book, but I was a walking zombie. I was on antihistamines, decongestants, inhalers. I was drinking as much coffee and the strongest coffee I could find and make. I was taking hydroxycuts with ephedrine in it. And one day I was undercover deep with the Outlaws. I was in Daytona at Bike Week, a world run. I woke up after a long night of partying and hitting probably a Waffle House or something to that effect. You know, you wake up, you feel and hear the whiskey and eggs swishing in your belly. And I was like, I'm working out. And I started doing kind of like a P90X kind of thing in the hotel room, mountain climbers, push-ups, burpees, sit-ups, squats. And I came up for air from something and it wasn't there. And I panicked and I had a panic attack. But before I started that, I did everything I just told you I was on. I woke up after being out all night. And again, this is not the FBI's fault. This is me. I did this to myself. But I wake up and I hit the inhaler. I take the antihistamines. I take the decongestants. I drink 2 cups of coffee. I hit the 3 hydroxycuts. And now your hair follicles are tingling. It's basically, I mean, it's a cocktail for an anxiety attack if you look at it the right way. And I panicked. And did I stop? Should I have? Yeah. Did I? No. I freaked out. Luckily, another undercover that was down there kind of backing me up knocked on my door, and I was as white as a sheet, and my lips were all tight. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't think so." And we started talking, and I ended up. I took a nap. I woke up and I went back out. So when I flew home from that trip, I'd been going for 3 years at this pace, and when I flew home, I slept from wheels up to wheels down to Houston, and I slept from wheels up to wheels down to McAllen, Texas. And I got home, and the first night I fell asleep. I slept like 12 hours. I woke up, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I slept 12 hours. And I fell asleep. And now it's 9 o'clock, and my wife's nudging me, going, "Are you gonna wake up? You're gonna eat dinner?" I'm like, "Dinner? What time is it?" She's like, 9 o'clock. I get up, and I'm thinking, boy, I guess I screwed myself up. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. And I was out again. I probably slept close to 20 hours the first day or two. And then it was an average of over 16 hours a day until that Friday. I woke up and I'm like, something's not right. I was freaking out and I was crashing. And I self-reported. We have a unit that's under the Undercover operations platform at the FBI, and it's called Safeguard. Joe Pistone actually helped create it. And that's where you get your mandatory psychological assessments if you're an active undercover. And if you're involved in a lot of crap going on, they can tell you can't go undercover until you come get assessed. At one point, I was assessed 3 times in 4 months or something like that. But I called and said, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm crashing. And then that's where the build back started. But, one of the things of the Safeguard test is, so you take a bunch of psychological tests. Many of them are some that everybody's had at their job at some point or another. But there was one that was like open-ended sentences. So it says like women are, and you got to type in the answer, your answer. Men are, you type in your answer. My badge and my gun are, my mom, my dad. One of them is the last time I relaxed, I. And Scott, again, minor in psychology, could have had a double major if I'd have taken 2 more classes. I had no idea what I did to relax. I'm sitting there in Orlando taking this test, and I'm going, and I hear you. I looked and it said, the last time I relaxed, I. And I looked at it for a second, and I'm like, I don't even know what I do to relax. I'm like, I work out all the time, but I'm like, that's not technically relaxing. I mean, it's good for me, but it's not like I'm playing Yanni and doing namaste stuff. I'm trying to throw plates across the gym, and I remember thinking for a split second, well, that's really messed up. And then I made up a story, but I didn't know I was already done because that was on the way to Daytona. And
let me ask you. Let me push you a little bit and ask you a question that you may or may not want to answer. But is it safe to assume that when you were in your role undercover, and people were partying around you, and people were doing things around you, I would assume that you're expected to join in to some degree, or at least fake it, so they don't think you're not there for other reasons. But were you exposed to other things, illicit substances as well? You're drinking, obviously, is legal, but but I would assume that that came up or was around the table or people pushed it in your face or you
Yeah.
had to play that role. Were you, it was part of your job description? You got to do what you got to do in that environment to make sure that everybody thinks you are who you are.
For me personally, I'll say no. And even in the FBI, I'll say no, because it's really what your story is, and whether they trust you or not. I mean, now, when I was a vice narcotics investigator at a state and local level, I was at Greenville County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina. I might be coming in as a user. I'm making a buy, and then I'm making another buy, and then I'm making another buy, and then we're probably arresting you or hitting it. That's not necessarily deep cover. It's extremely dangerous. A lot of times it's way more dangerous than going deep undercover, rolling up on a corner and buying dope. But I can come up with some reasons to not do it right there in front of you. It's not like I'm hanging out and living with you. Now, if I'm going deep undercover and I'm coming in as a user and you've never seen me use, yeah, you need to get ready. But no, I didn't. Nothing was ever slipped. Was it around? Absolutely. Did I deal in it? Yeah, but I didn't. I never did anything like that. There's one case in the book I talk about where I did end up kind of underestimating the guy I was up against, and I broke my own rule. And even though he didn't have a tooth in his head, and he was a mountain man, he was very streetwise and smart. And he put me in a corner, basically, and I ended up leaning back. I was leaning as far back on the couch as I could with a red bone hound. You could feel its hot breath on your crotch. It's growling. Mean as hell dog. I don't know why that dog was so mean, because I'm a dog person, but that thing was mean. And it's in my crotch growling, and he's got an open bag of cocaine about this far from my nose saying, if you're not a cop, do it. Do it. And he's got a double barrel shotgun aimed at me. And he already told me, if I find out you law, you're dead, man. On that one, I'm like, even if I smack the cocaine out, there's particles in the air. I faked the test, which nobody taught me how to do. That was just an ad lib thing. And that's the only time. So I didn't have to do anything like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can say that the adrenaline is a drug and an addiction, and when you're younger, hopefully if you're blessed enough to get older, you should be wiser. And sometimes wiser isn't sexy, but it's safer, right? But early on, a lot of times, and especially out there, if there's no training or lack of oversight and things like that, you get people, and even my mindset when I was younger is, I got to make the case. I got to make the case. This is the case. There's no case out there, no investigation out there worth you losing your mental health, your physical health, your marriage, your life, your job, none of that. Turn around and walk. It's because, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, I'm a believer. At the end of the day, it's God first, family second. And I include dogs in my family. Everything else, even though I'm a workaholic, if you lay it down on the table, what's really important? And, but I bought into it too. And plus, as a type A personality, even as a senior person, say I'm an undercover coordinator, which I was for I don't know how many years, but let's say I'm looking at you as an undercover and I'm going, okay, I disagree. You shouldn't go in there. It's too dangerous. But me and my peers and mentors in the back of our mind, we're going, but I can do it. Because I can pull that off. And that's something you got to be really careful of.
Yeah.
So just so you know, Scott, I am still here.
Okay.
Even though you can't see me.
John Cena.
I chose to go undercover.
Okay.
I don't know what happened with my camera, but all of a sudden it switched off again. So, and I can't switch back on and off because I'm recording.
That's cool.
So I am listening to you guys, but continue, because I like the way Scott does this on his own.
You pay me the big bucks. I gotta send Fred every month just to pay for Riverside, so we have the internet connection. So I hear everything you're saying, and it's, I think I've kind of heard most of it before, which is kind of cool, that your consistency. So do you spend time? You're teaching now, it sounds like, and you're coaching, mentoring. Obviously, how long ago did your book come out?
The book came out on March 25th
of this
year. Yeah, this year. So, and I mean, I was on Rogan the next day.
So how did you infiltrate the neo-Nazi organization? Did you actually meet with them in person, or was it mostly online?
So I'll just jump to the base.
Okay.
Because the base was the one that's kind of the beginning and the end of the book. They were actively recruiting. I mean, I was in the Klan too for a little while for the job. I got to be careful how I say it, right?
People clip
I
that
know,
out.
right? Back when I was in the Klan, we were good old boys. But they were recruiting openly online. The base was, and the base is an accelerationist group, and that's what I again, great detail in the book, in the podcast. But the thing is most people hear white supremacy, they think hoods and robes and crosses on fire, right? That's not this, man. This is why they're called accelerationists. There's a book out there called Siege, written by James Mason, longtime white supremacist. It's a weird book. It's basically articles and interviews all just shoved together. But this guy kind of idolized and interviewed people like Charles Manson. You know, what a great role model. I mean, if you're looking, but he created a group called Atomwaffen. And this is what accelerationism is. Because when I go to infiltrate the base, I'm just answering stuff they're putting out there. Emails, they're posting on Gab, save your race, join the base. And that's pretty much the rest of the story. In under 3 months, I'm completely blessed, man. In under 3 months, I was a New York Times bestselling author. And then shortly after that, I went up to Canada because my co-writer's she's Canadian, and CBC was doing a lot of stuff with her. And I went up there and went to an event, and I did 2 TV shows. In the next 2 weeks, we were in the top 10 there. So now they're saying international bestseller. So,
Yeah. So based on your experience doing what you did, what because your lived experience right now is pretty unusual. I mean, there are a lot of people that have done it, you know, and they kind of retire, then they go and play golf, or, you know, and many times, unfortunately, in law enforcement, people, you know, that's what they know, and they eat their gun. Working with law enforcement as long as I have, I can't tell you how many men and women have said to me, I'd rather eat my gun than admit that I've got a mental health issue.
yeah,
And
it's a
very
huge
frustrating.
issue. Very big issue
Huge.
right now.
Yeah. Well, veterans, it's even higher, the suicide rate, which is even more scary because there's ton of, you know, they're out of the service, so it's not going to kill their career, but they don't ask, you know, look, asking for help, I find, are the 3 hardest words. I'm an interventionist and a family navigator. So when I get to families, and, you know, a woman just called me the other day, she says, we spoke about 5 years ago and my son is still having trouble. What do you think? I said, well, he's got some great survival skills, because I remember the conversation. It was pretty brutal 5 years ago. And she said, you know, will you let him call you? And I said, you know, that's my rule. I'm not going to call you, because if I'm calling you, I feel like a salesman. You call me, there's nothing I won't do to give you some help and get you guided and help you get to the next and best level of support and care. So when you do what you do today, what is it that's driving you that's different, if you will? Because you've kind of gone over this bastion now, and you're in this world where, you know, you can create systemic change, you know, and you're becoming, if you're not already, a major influencer in the world of, you know, not only surviving some brutal undercover work, but also the experience that you've had going through your own personal trauma and coming out the other side of it. So what is it you do today that makes you feel good? I mean, other than your fitness, and looks like you got nice and tan, so you either passed out at the beach or you went to the tanning salon. You look healthy. So, but what are you doing now? What makes you happy now that keeps you busy?
Man, there's so much in what you said that's jumping out in my mind.
That's because I'm ADHD and I'm trying to cover a lot in a very short period of time. And I have some untreated trauma as well. Go ahead.
I think the world has ADHD. I mean, we got phones, everything's. It's just like nobody. I mean, that's why. We can go on a long tangent on that. I'll tell you what. I thought I was going to work to 57. That's the cutoff age at FBI. But somewhere right around 50, COVID showed me what retirement might look like, because they wouldn't let us work. I'm like, I don't care if you don't want me to come to the office. I got a task force I'm working with. They're ready to work. We can go to work. No. Okay. All right, whatever. But it allowed me to sit at home for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks with nothing to do. I might be okay for a week. I'm not okay for 2. I got to do something. So I knew there were going to be voids to fill because I love interacting with people. I love getting called out at 2 and 3 in the morning to go meet the craziest of the crazies, the most evil of evil, the nicest of the nice. It doesn't matter. And to sit down and talk with them and try to crack them and try to either get a confession or, figure out what's going on. So I knew I had to do something like that. So I'm still an instructor. I'm an instructor with Alert. That's the national standard for training law enforcement on active shooter response. They have a boatload of other classes. So I do that. That keeps me plugged into the law enforcement side. I still go out and teach. But the book, I didn't want to do it. I didn't even want to do the Rolling Stones article, but I had friends in the entertainment industry, and I'm a musician and singer. So I got that. I got a lot of friends in professional wrestling through the years. So I kind of know the industry, and it looked like there might be a chance to maybe be a consultant on a show or something like that. That's how really everything started with professional wrestling. And I met somebody, and that's what we kept going with. But for me to go out and speak and do what I'm doing now, it's just to spread. I love spreading knowledge. I love teaching. I love learning. And even if it's one person out of 400 officers that comes up to me afterwards and said, man, that part where you said you overdid it, that really hit home with me. I've been feeling it and I've been doing too much and I need to take better care of myself. And I'm like, excellent. But you touched on some things that I say at the end of every class, whether it's Alert, if nobody else says it, somebody else says it, I go, okay, I ditto. Or like a couple of weeks ago when I was at a gang investigators conference, I say first responders, but I'm also including military. So that's cop, fire, medic, military. We're number one in suicide. We're number one in divorce. We're number one in alcoholism, throw pills, or whatever the hell else you want in there now. And we're usually number one in dying within 5 years after retiring. It's such a pressure cooker. And as you said, reaching out for help is it comes with a type A tough personality. It's like, oh man, I'm going to put some dirt on it. That's exactly what I did. I'm like, I don't need sleep. Everybody was there. I'll sleep enough when I'm dead. One day I was teaching and I said that and I'm like, that doesn't even make any damn sense. I'm dead. I'm not resting. Why the hell have I been saying that my whole life? But I tell them, I'm like, look, I get the proverbial. You don't want to talk to the psychologist at your department because you're afraid something's going to leak and this, that. I get it. That's fine. But know that there's help out there. And it does not mean you're weak. I don't give a damn. If you think you're the baddest person in the world and you want to fight about it, well, then let's fight about it. Because you can whip my tail all you want. It doesn't mean you're weak because you're asking for help. I said, if you go sit down with a therapist, a psychologist, picture me telling you to build a house and I only give you a hammer. That's going to be hard to do. But if I roll up with 3 truckloads of air compressors and every damn thing you can think of, it's going to be a lot easier to build that house. I said, so maybe that therapist, that psychologist has this awesome set of tools and they can give you some and you can now use that tool because your mental health needs to be maintained. You work out, you eat to give your body energy. You have to do that. And we're so bad at it because there's such a stigma. But you said you reached out to me on LinkedIn. Man, I get hit all the time with suicide, another cop. And it's like, man, just reach out. And then I put my phone number up. And just like you, I'm not calling them, but my phone rings 24/7. I have text messages and things like that silenced through the night, but it rings. And I will get up and I will talk and I'll do whatever I can. And I also throw this out there. And I picked this up from one of my pastors when he was using it for something else. But I ask everybody in the room, I said, how many people in here, and it's funny because you started the show with this, how many people here have had food poisoning? And everybody raises their hand. And then I say, did you stop eating? No. So if you have a bad experience with a therapist, go find somebody else. It's okay. Yep. But you need to, and I've got friends now through Alert. I mean, I've met some of the toughest, baddest cops, special forces, you name it. I'm like, holy cow. And there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of them starting to, I don't know if you ever talk about it, but they're starting to deal with the psychedelic, the healing and the under microdosing and stuff like that. But it's totally controlled, not going out and buying it yourself and trying it at home. But
Yeah,
There's a lot.
Abigail and
Yep.
Abigail's one of them. You know what? And people ask me all the time. I'm a guy in long-term recovery. You know, what do you think about people doing acid or taking mushrooms? I said, you know what? If that particular tool helps an individual stay alive, you know, kind of like what methadone does for people who have been addicted to heroin, and now they're talking about removing methadone from this country, which would put a lot of individuals on the streets without any hope.
Yeah.
So, you know, I agree with you that you know, and one size doesn't fit all is how we approach it.
Yeah.
And that everybody, you know, needs to understand that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And when you
Exactly.
ask for help, you're not asking for a therapist or a psychiatrist or, you know, 20 sessions. You're just saying, you know what I'm doing right now ain't working. Is there someone here that maybe could help me? And that's where the, you know, the fellowship I have a recovery or the social model that we use in treatment is really effective, because most of us don't trust people. I didn't. You know, I was seeing a psychiatrist for my depression so I wouldn't drink. And then he was giving me prescriptions that amplified my alcohol use and abuse. And then, you know, it's like when I couldn't see him, and, you know, I'm a retired unlicensed pharmacist. So I had my own distribution center that I was running many years ago. And I get it. And when I talk to families, I want to be a resource for them. And I ask people all the time, if what you're doing is not working, you know, why would you not want to take a look at an option? I mean, when you break your leg, most people don't go on YouTube, you know, and go, what does Scott Payne think I should do about my broken leg? They kind of go to the ER, you know?
Yeah.
And you're right. The stigma around mental health and, you know, underlying issues that are untreated, and people that are, you know, stuck on, self-medicating on a daily basis. And by the way, I want to correct you on something you may not know.
Okay.
And I'm sure you love to get corrected. But
I actually do.
lawyers actually have a higher percentage substance abuse rate than law enforcement. And what's interesting is,
Okay.
I found this out about 7 years ago. They had a conference here, and they didn't know the media was there, and they were disclosing the National Bar Association, because they'd done a study, and 35% of lawyers, people who are trained, take the bar and practice law, have an issue with something mood altering on a regular basis that they can't control, which is interesting when you think about it. But, you know, and doctors have it too. And, you know, when you think about, and pilots now, we're seeing it because it's being disclosed or discovered. And we're starting to work with pilots, and it was a population that, you know, normally you'd think has all the protection they need, but most people don't go down the hall to their HR or their EAP to say, yeah, I think I have a drinking problem. What can I do about it? Because it'll be a career killer in their mind. So they do nothing. And, you know, I remember years ago reading about a pilot in Britain who took his own life. He left a note. He goes, I did not want to admit to my family and to my colleagues that I had a mental health issue. So they took their own life. And that shouldn't have to be. I mean, it just shouldn't have to be. To your, you know, your point about when you were taking things you needed to survive, you know, sometimes it's a cup of coffee, sometimes it's a good workout. I don't, unfortunately, do much when it comes to physical fitness. So when I see guys like you, I get inspired for a minute. Because once I met my endorphins, then I changed my address. I was a little scared. I didn't want them coming around again. But that's just me, brother. That's just me. So let me ask you, what would you like us to ask you today that people don't ask you that you'd like to be asked? What question would that? What would that look like?
Gosh. Oh, that's a tough one, because I'm such a off the hip. Yeah, you know what I mean. I show up. It's like being undercover. It's like, hey, I'm trying to think 5 moves ahead, and I don't know what you're going to throw at me, but I like it's tennis. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm waiting. I don't know what you're going to serve to me, but I'm going to try to serve something back. I'm so transparent. It's just,
well, let's pretend
let's
pretend you're undercover right now, and I just discovered it, and I say to you, okay, you're undercover. What do you like most about being undercover? You know, somebody gets to pay for your meals. You know, you get to go to cool places. You know,
I live a lifestyle that I normally would not be able to live. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's probably the adrenaline. I mean, because it's pretty much that first responder, military, we're adrenaline junkies. I would assume most of us are, you know. Car chase, 120 miles an hour, you're half a car length off a bumper. I'm cool. Shootout, I'm cool. Fight, you think you're gonna die, I'm cool. Now, don't get me wrong. Like 3 hours later, I might go start shaking. But yeah, the undercover thing, but it's also connecting with people. And I find, I don't know, some kind of joy and thrill in that. That game of chess. Can I get into this group? Can we find out? But I'm also an investigator, and so there's reports that they're doing bad things sometimes, and we get in there, and sometimes we find out, look, hey, they're not doing anything illegal. You're just being proactive. It's a very intrusive. It's a very intrusive technique. It's like right there with wiretaps, if not more. But again, that's why the evidence is so overwhelming when you do it that way, because they're dead to rights. The only thing the defense can really do is claim entrapment, which would be easy to thwart if you've done your job, or they can try to make me look like a piece of trash on the stand. But
it is interesting, Scott. I do have a quick question to chime in here. I know I'm not on the screen, but
you're always welcome, Fred.
I'm always
your
welcome.
show.
So when just like every other thing in the world, just because you were infiltrating a biker gang, say, not all of them are bad people. How did you separate that? Did you make true friendships while you're in there? And are there people that really bothered you that they like, if you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. If I'm teaching, it's like, oh, well, they're not really my friend. I built those. That's the undercover technique. You're building relationships that you're going to betray. Even if I found out, hey, you're legit, there's nothing illegal, I still kind of betrayed you because I didn't give you my real name. I didn't tell you I was an FBI agent. But yeah, the biker case especially, there were some guys I got really, really close to, and I'm still close with them. Now that was one of the many great things that have come about this book coming out, and me being on like Rogan and shows like yours, and just the Instagram and stuff. Somebody sees it and they reach out on Instagram, and I'm like, holy shit, I haven't talked to this person since, the last thing I said to this person was, I love you, and I do, and I did. So yeah, it's tough. And that is one thing that a lot of times isn't portrayed correctly. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm sitting down with a pedophile, I'm not bonding with that person. If I'm sitting down, even on the white supremacy extremist cases, am I a white supremacist? Do I believe they're absolutely not? But I still bonded with some of them because, if you're in there, that's just me. Not everybody's that way, and you don't have to be that way. But I'm just telling you how I am as a person connecting with people, especially when I'm basically living with you and I'm there in and out. But there's been other cases where, like, I liked the person. They were doing illegal stuff, but I still liked them. When their AC went out, I went and got money and put a new AC in, things like that. And to elaborate further on that, even after they were arrested, they were calling my undercover phone going, hey, it's your boy. I just want you to know I love you, man. I know you're just doing your job. I'm like, I love you too, man. It's like the Bugs Bunny cartoon, the coyote and the sheepdog clock in, and then they fight all day, and then they clock out. See you in the morning, Sam. See you in the morning, Ralph.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, Scott, you got anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, I'm going to put up my number. It's 619-993-2738. That's 619-993-2738. Please give me a call. And Scott, give anybody my name and number, that either I can be of service to, or family members, your kids, your wife, if they're having trouble with you, I'm happy to do that as well. I work with the whole family, and I'm not a clinician and I'm not a doctor, just have a lot of lived experience, and I'm tired of going to funerals. And I think there's always hope and help. And I pray on that. And I really want to thank you for being here today. And I appreciate your candor. And would you share with everybody how they can find you, your book, your movie, where they can get an autograph?
Well, there's not a movie or TV series yet. That would be one of the reasons I'm getting off of this in a little bit. So hopefully, fingers crossed, praying. But Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, and TikTok, and Threads is all at Scott Payne Big Country. I'm out there. The book, Codename Pale Horse, you can get it anywhere. Be careful if you go on Amazon. I'm the top one. It's my face. Everything under it is a scam. We call them, they take it off, and then there's a new one. It'll be like Agent Pale Horse Workbook.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and the audiobook's me. And I'm with you, Scott. Call me, man, if you need something. It's like I'm with you. One death is too many. I mean, it's just too much. And and I've seen it. I've seen it in the FBI where somebody was ashamed because they were going to be getting in trouble for something they did. So what? You might get 30 days on the bricks as long as you don't lie.
Yeah.
You don't get fired in the FBI. But it hurt them that it bothered them so much that their reputation was going to be ruined. They killed themselves, and it's like, what the? Come on, man.
Yeah.
You know. But
my mom used to tell me that because I used to talk about suicide, and I had my own attempt that suicide is selfish, and I never really knew what that was, but that rang in my head that day I was getting ready to jump out the window. And when people expire that way, it's horrific. They leave a whole nest of people that may or may not know what happened or why it happened that they have to live with for the rest of their life as well. And I know what that trauma untreated can be like, and I really invite people to make a phone call. If it's not me, it's somebody. Pick up Scott's book, get Fred's book, get my book. But don't think you're alone, because you're not. And no matter where you are, who you are, what's happened, you're not alone. Someone else has been down that road, experienced it, and probably more than likely would love to be of service. We have a saying in the program: you cannot keep it if you don't give it away.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll say also, I understand, because I've been in that dark place before. And even in retirement, I was there, and I woke up the next morning and I'm like, what in the blue hell happened, and how did I get there? And how am I not going to let that happen again? I know better than that, but I understand when you're in that dark place, you feel like there's no out. It doesn't matter if you're 17 years old and everybody around you is going, you got your whole life ahead of you. You're that sad. You feel that bad. I get it. But as you said, you're leaving a huge hole. And as your mother said, it's selfish, but look, just reach out to somebody, man. Because as you said, look, you're not, it's very, for you to be the first on anything is very rare, right? As you said, there's people have been through it, and there's people out there that can help you.
Yep. Nothing's original. All comes from
Scott,
somewhere.
as one of our past guests said something great a few weeks ago when they said we've all survived 100% of our worst moments up until now, to today. So you just got to keep going. But I want to thank you for joining us, Scott, but especially you, Scott Payne. Thank you very much. I know you're very popular at this point. I've heard you on Armchair Expert. I have heard you on all the big hitters. We appreciate you joining our tiny little show where we're just trying to save one life at a time, at least. If it's 100, that's great. But if it's one, we're quite proud of that. So we want to thank you. This is your crisis coach. Yep, one at a time. This is your crisis coach with Scott H. Silverman and myself, Fred Carroll. And if nobody has told you they love you today, we love you. And we will see you again next week. Hang out there for a moment, guys.